Our first speakers, Fernanda, Viegas, and Martin Wattenberg, have been, I think, at the cutting edge of data visualization work. They worked for a number of years at IBM developing the Many Eyes platform, which is an open platform for anybody to use to visualize data. They've now gone off on their own with their own company called Flowing Media, and they're here to show us something that the world has not seen. This is a world debut of a new visualization from Fernanda and Martin.
Hi, everyone. It's exciting to be here. We're going to start with something that you might all actually be familiar with, and it's called Google Suggest. And the way it works is if I go to Google and I type in, say, PdF 2010, it gives me a list of suggestions, and these are just the most frequently asked things on Google after the word you just typed. Now, this was done for convenience so that you would have to type less. But what it does is that it really gives us a little peek into our collective souls. So people have started actually going to Google asking questions. Exactly. I'm going to let you take that in a minute. We decided to visualize this kind of data. And we created something called the web sphere to visualize exactly the Google Suggest data. And I can start with why doesn't he, for instance. And basically what I'm doing is I'm visualizing exactly the same information, but now I'm using the thickness of the arrow and the size of the font to show me how frequently, how popular these queries are on the web. But then I'm going to do another thing too. I'm going to compare. I'm interested in comparing this one search with another one. So why doesn't he versus why doesn't she? And voila, I have exactly what they share in common, but I also am looking on how the genders differ.
So that gives that's kind of a lighthearted look, but we can actually look at some other deeper divisions when we get into family issues. Let's see what people are asking about their children. Is my daughter? And we see a set of hopes and fears. Is my son? And once again, we get a portrait of people's anxieties, hopes. And I think ultimately we're seeing a division in society here very, very clearly.
So let's get from family issues to political issues. So let's see what people are asking about our Republicans versus our Democrats. And you can see the state of confusion reigning in.
Now you can ask, okay, people are confused. Is there anything that they agree on politically? Let's put in some assertions instead. Let's say Republicans are, and Democrats are. And you see in the middle, that is the point of intersection that still exists. So the theme of this talk really is divisions and lack of divisions in cyberspace. The web sphere gives us a way of seeing what's out on the web that people have written maybe over the past couple of years. You could ask about what's happening in real time. For that, of course, we turn to Twitter. And we're going to talk a little bit about Twitter here. You know, you're all familiar with Twitter. You go to the homepage, you see a bunch of trending topics. These are the things that people are tweeting a whole lot about. You know, we noticed something interesting about these topics and did a little experiment. We'd like to show you the results now. Here's a little handcrafted visualization. What you see on the screen are trending topics that we saw in a recent evening, ranging from hashtag 4 words before death down to oil spill. And we looked at the photos of the people who had tweeted about each of these things recently, 100 photos per topic. And we characterized, we hand-coded these, whether the race of the people, and then we counted up the number of white people versus African Americans.
So let's see the results. The two top topics there. You can see that it's quite balanced, right? You might say there's slightly more black authors versus white authors, but in the whole, it's a heterogeneous crowd tweeting about this. Not so with the other topics on this list. This is what it looks like. So you can see right there that there's a chunk of topics that are overwhelmingly being done by black authors, and then there are 2 topics at the bottom that are done mostly by white authors. And the thing that's not so intuitive is that some topics are really general. So for instance, cookout. This was Memorial Day weekend, by the way. And cookout is done overwhelmingly by black authors versus something like oil spill, which at that point in the evening when we were doing this was done mostly by white authors. So the point is not to think, wow, oh my God, there's racial segregation on the web. We sort of knew that, right? It's a reflection of real life. But the point here is that this level of segregation is 1 click away from the Twitter homepage. It's the trending topics. And the fact that you can look at the trending topics and be immersed in conversations that are so separate from each other is something to keep in mind.
So this was a handcrafted visualization. It's something that took a while to do. You might ask, is there a way to see things live in real time? And so for that, we're going to take a look at another visualization that's just looking at conversations on Twitter in a very verbal way. OK. So what you're seeing here, and this is a work in progress sneak preview, this is a view of about 300 recent tweets that came up when you search for Obama. And what our program has done is clustered these into a bunch of sort of topical areas. And these are these main columns. Each little dot that you see is a tweet. And what we've done in this particular view is highlighted the hashtags. So hashtags are the little words that have a little hash sign in front of them that people use to mark topic or perspective and so on. If something is a hashtag, it gets a little colored dot with a color chosen to represent the hashtag. If it has a lot of hashtags, it gets many concentric rings. So you can see a couple in the center. People are just piling on the hashtags. And one sort of observation is that these hashtags are sort of the bumper stickers of the 21st century.
And so let's actually do a search now for one of these hashtags. Let's go to, oops. Let's go to, sorry. Let's go to Tea Party. And let's see how we're doing on connection here. Let me see if I'm live. Work. It's OK. What we did in preparation for a live demo is that we had a tab. OK. So this is what's going on. This is what Tea Party looked like just a few minutes before we came onto stage. Okay? As you can see, it's quite different from the Obama conversation in the sense that one of the senses is that every tweet here is packed pretty much with hashtags. So the number of bigger circles is much bigger, and so forth. You might actually notice that the sort of headlines for the clusters themselves are hashtags. That's the level at which these people are using hashtags to signal what it is they're talking about.
It's like one of those cars with bumper stickers all over the back.
Yeah, exactly. So if we want to see, well, OK, but what are the tweets? What are they talking about? I can actually zoom in to one of the clusters and actually see the individual tweets. And for instance, this group here is talking a lot about Sarah Palin. Let's see another group here, TCOT, TLOT, and P2. They're talking about different representatives, whether or not they voted for Obamacare and what to do with them next. So you get a very quick view of how the conversation is breaking down. The other thing about this is that this is just one way to look at the conversation, which is we're highlighting hashtags. But there are many different ways, right? So one of the things that we got curious is who are the people behind these tweets? What do they look like? So you can switch that to a photo view. And voila, you have a Tea Party rally right in front of you. You didn't even have to leave your home. You have all the flags, you have Sarah Palin icons, and so forth.
So there's an interesting thing about this Tea Party rally, and that is if you look at the hashtags that people are using in these tweets, there's actually a couple that might be surprising. One of them is this hashtag P2, which comes up a lot. That's actually a progressive tag. Progressive 2.0. And you can say, what is a nice liberal tag doing in a place like this? And the answer is kind of interesting. And maybe the best way to describe it is to go to a blog entry that we found from a conservative blogger who is as part of sort of teaching people the ropes on Twitter, was defining a whole bunch of different conservative hashtags and the nuances of their meaning, and went on at the end and said, now for a bonus part about lib hashtags. P2 is used by progressives, so if you're looking for liberals to enlighten or annoy, this is the one to use. So he's actually the idea is you reach out across the aisle to bug your rivals. And it's not just conservatives doing this. Here is a liberal tweeter that we found, where someone is rebutting some conservative rhetoric, and they carefully put hashtag Tea Party at the end of their tweet, just to make sure the conservatives see it.
So you might ask yourselves, well, if people are using these hashtags in such cross-referencing ways, are there any hashtags that still remain pure? If we wanted to look for a liberal pure hashtag that doesn't have any conservative hashtags associated with it, what would that be? It's actually really hard. We actually had to look hard for this. And we found one such tag, one liberal pure tag. So take a second and think about what that one might be. I'll tell you, it is NPR. So NPR... And isn't this, it's the ultimate virgin liberal tag, and isn't it, representative that a cluster about Democrat and liberal and gun control exists right next to world, people, and Einstein? So voila.
So we'd like to end there, and I think the message is that there are a lot of divisions in cyberspace, and I think visualization can help expose them, but it also helps expose how the bridges are being built. And I think the funny message may be that our biggest hope for ending isolated echo chambers may be the desire of people to taunt and annoy each other, and thereby may be our chance for constructive dialogue. Thanks.